This is Module 2, Review Screencast, focused on assessment, prevention, and remediation. This screencast will focus on reviewing concepts that were introduced in the IDA fact sheet titled Testing and Evaluation. It's very important that you first give yourself some time to read through this document before using this screencast as a review. So let's first think about, why is evaluation going to be important? Evaluation is going to provide us a diagnosis of dyslexia. So we'll be able to determine if the student's reading and writing difficulties are a function of a neurobiological condition known as dyslexia, or perhaps a lack of instructional opportunity. Evaluation process will also give us intervention planning documents. So as a function of the evaluation, we will learn strategies and content that the student could benefit from learning. And finally, the evaluation is important as it will help us show student progress as we implement the intervention plan. When should a child be evaluated? Drawing on the IDA fact sheet, it is important to identify reading difficulties early before they develop into reading failure. Screening tests, such as the Dynamic Indicator of Basic Early Literacy Skills, also known as DIBELS, and Ames-Webb, are used by districts to identify students who are at risk of reading difficulty. These tests signal if students are falling behind peers and determine what the child needs help learning. For example, is there a problem understanding concepts about print, or letter-sound correspondences, or sight word knowledge? Screening tests will help us see specific areas of literacy where children are having difficulty. Classroom teachers are also going to be very important in the evaluation process. If you suspect, as a teacher, that a child in your class is struggling with reading or writing tasks, it's going to be very important that you consult with the reading intervention specialist or school psychologist to begin the referral and testing process. Early identification will help students begin remediation sooner and prevent frustration in your classroom. So how do we know if a student is exhibiting those characteristics of dyslexia? I'm just going to bring up the slide from Module 1 Screencast Review. You remember that dyslexics may have these following characteristics. So, handwriting inefficiency, handwriting that's very labored or is very difficult to read. We talk about that as dysgraphia. Or a student might have difficulty spelling words. If you're a content area teacher, maybe you notice that in their notes they're having repeated problems spelling words or keeping up with note-taking tasks because they're thinking so much about spelling each letter in the words that you're showing on your PowerPoints or on the board. Students with dyslexia will have difficulty reading fluently. Their reading will be slow and labored, which could contribute to avoidance of reading tasks. So when you assign reading homework, are students having difficulty completing that in the time allotted? You'll see students with dyslexia having problems with persistence, getting texts read or comprehending what they have read. You might notice that in classroom activities, your dyslexic students have difficulty recalling a specific vocabulary word or using specific vocabulary, sometimes substituting words with pronouns. And you might notice in your content area classes that students have difficulty learning new vocabulary. All of these could be indicators that the student has a neurobiological condition known as dyslexia. Be on the lookout for students who may be exhibiting some of these difficulties, and then move toward having that child referred for evaluation. What will be included in an evaluation? First, background information would be gathered from parents and classroom teachers. Specifically from parents, we would be looking for maybe a history of family difficulty with reading tasks. We would also be looking for descriptions from classroom teachers of the specific kinds of tasks that are difficult for students. Evaluation will include an analysis of oral language skills. So receptive oral language, that means can the child listen to and understand language? Or productive language skills, can the child say what they intend to say? Word recognition would be part of that evaluation. Can the child see words and quickly identify them? Decoding, which is the ability to look at words, chunk parts, relate sounds to those letters efficiently. Spelling, can children record sounds efficiently? Phonological processing, so can a student manipulate sounds? When they hear the word cat, can they divide it into 3 separate sounds, k, a, t, and record those sounds? We'll look at the student's automaticity. So with early children, we look for can they quickly recall the names of letters when they're shown those letters. With older children, we might be showing them sight words, words that are commonly occurring in English, and seeing how quickly they can identify those words. We'll look at their reading comprehension. So when they read a text, can they understand what it means? The profile of strengths and weaknesses that we get from this kind of evaluation varies with age, educational opportunity, and the influence of other factors such as emotional adjustment, ability to pay attention in learning situations, difficulty with health or motivation. So all of that is taken into consideration in the evaluation process. We'll also be looking at the student's knowledge of vocabulary. Who conducts these evaluations? The diagnosis of dyslexia begins with gathering information from a variety of participants in the school system. A diagnosis of dyslexia begins with gathering information from interviews, observations, and assessments. The information may be collected by a variety of members of a team that includes the classroom teacher, speech and language pathologist, parents, educational assessment specialists, and even medical personnel if co-occurring difficulties related to development, health, or attention are suspected. The task of relating and interpreting the information collected should be the responsibility of a professional who is thoroughly familiar with important characteristics of dyslexia at different stages in the development of literacy skills. This professional should also have knowledge of the influence of language development and behavior on literacy learning. So often the person coordinating the evaluation effort is the school psychologist. What would we anticipate would be the outcome of the evaluation process? Well, the assessments are created, interviews are conducted, and the school psychologist would then generate a written report. And this written report could then be shared with the parents, classroom teachers, and all those responsible for developing and implementing instruction with this student. The written report will identify strengths and weaknesses across skill areas. So the report should be able to tell participants, what does the student know? What do they struggle with? That will then help the teachers involved develop an intervention plan. So what can be done to support this student in the social studies class, in their music class? When we can identify the strengths of the student and the areas of weakness, we can then think about our particular content areas and anticipate ways that we can build on strengths and support those literacy weaknesses. Another outcome of evaluation will be a plan for documentation. As we implement the intervention plans, we'll want to keep track of how students respond to those techniques and strategies that we're using in our classes. To help us see what students are able to do and learn, we'll have a plan for documenting shifts in student learning. There's one caution I would like to reiterate from the IDA fact sheet. This is on page 5 of your IDA fact sheet. An initial diagnosis of dyslexia should be offered only as a tentative conclusion based on the data available. A poor reader may appear to fit the profile of dyslexia. However, if the learner responds quickly to appropriate intervention, the source of the reading problem is more likely related to earlier educational opportunity than to problems in the child's physical makeup that limit the ability to learn from the instruction provided. The ability of the learner to benefit from instruction that is focused on the basic skills that support reading and spelling provides valuable information necessary to support or reject the initial diagnosis. It's important to realize that the evaluation process involves a period of examining how students respond to the instruction. Some concluding thoughts. Based on our conversation, how would you respond to this question? If a teacher suspects that a student may exhibit characteristics of dyslexia, he or she should read through these 4 ideas and see which one you think would be the best selection. Well, let's talk through this a bit. Choice A. Wait a bit, the child may outgrow the problem. If a child is dyslexic, they're going to continue to struggle in the classroom. So waiting only prolongs the difficulty. B. Do nothing. Drawing attention to differences will make the child uncomfortable. Well, there are probably positive ways that you can help this student. Doing nothing will protract the problem. C. Adapt the student's work to eliminate reading, writing, or spelling work. If we eliminate all the reading, writing, or spelling work from our curriculum, how is that student ever going to learn to read, write, or spell? So I think we're left with D. Support the student's literacy with individualized intervention plan and systematically monitor his or her response to the intervention while referring the student for evaluation. After we've initiated the referral for evaluation, we want to make sure that we're supporting that student's literacy learning in our classroom. Now, how do we do that? We have thought about what is dyslexia in Module 1. You've thought a little bit about the assessment, prevention, and remediation of dyslexia in Module 2. In Module 3, we'll begin to think about the content of effective instruction for dyslexics. And then in Modules 4 and 5, we'll think about strategies for supporting dyslexic students' reading and writing and spelling skills in your content area classes.